It's everyone's favorite time of the week, the NFC West Huddle. Just 2 weeks left in the regular season, and the division still up for grabs. Joining me today is Gerard Moncure from Los Angeles, Robbie Baker from Phoenix, and Keyshawn Ward from San Francisco. Gerard, I'll go to you first. The Rams maintain their division lead with an ugly win over the Jets. Some bad weather we were talking before the show. What were your takeaways from the win, and any concern about the offense putting up just 31 points the past two games?
Hey, a win is a win, especially when you get this late in the year. W's all that matters in the win-loss column. I'm not concerned at all. You know, you look at the last two games the Rams have played where they didn't score a lot of points and they had trouble in the red zone. They played the 49ers and they played the Jets. They are the second and fourth ranked defenses in terms of allowing yards in the National Football League. Two very, very good defenses. They also played two bad weather games, a rainstorm in San Francisco and a 25-degree weather game in East Rutherford, New Jersey. So you take all those things into consideration, and they found a way to win. And that's what good teams do. That's what NFL playoff teams do. They just simply find ways to win. Move ahead to Saturday. They get the Cardinals for a second time. Arizona applied the beatdown earlier in the year. They're playing in ideal conditions. They've won 4 in a row. They're hot. Arizona is the 20th ranked team defensively. They've got nothing to play for. You know, in my opinion, the offense is going to be just fine on Saturday night. What happened the last two games where they did win, not a big deal.
Robbie, I'll go to you next. The Cardinals officially eliminated from the playoffs after an overtime loss to the Panthers. What went wrong in Charlotte for Arizona?
Well, to steal a phrase, if you will, from Cardinals lore, I think the Cardinals are who we thought they were. I don't know many people at the beginning of the year who thought this Cardinals team was actually going to be a playoff team when all the dust finally settled. And it turns out they're not going to be playing postseason football because of what happened in Carolina. It's funny because leading up to that game, Kyler Murray was asked if this was the proverbial kind of trap game that everybody kind of talks about at this point in an NFL season, and Kyler kind of laughed and said he didn't believe in trap games, but also maybe the Cardinals weren't good enough for this to be a trap game because they were, you know, the way they looked at film is they were pretty evenly matched. And it turned out, trap game or not, the Cardinals were eliminated last weekend in Carolina, and it was just sloppy. 11 penalties, multiple turnovers, and this Cardinals team is 1-4 since the bye week. I got to give Gerard some flowers here because about a month ago I was on the huddle with you guys, and coming out of the bye week we were asked, you know, how we felt about our teams, and at that point the Cardinals were 6-4. I thought, man, the Cardinals are sitting pretty. They kind of control their destiny. The Seahawks a couple times, the Rams, and Gerard, my man, you were the one that said you felt the best about the Rams coming out of where they were and the schedule that they had ahead of them, and they were going into that Bills game. You thought that was going to be the turning point, and boy was it.
Robbie, I need some more confidence. We need the Cardinals to come up big against the Rams next week. We'll see. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Keyshawn, first, I'll go to you. Niners fell to 6-9 with a loss to the Dolphins. How important is it for you guys to finish the season strong heading into next year? And I've seen some Twitter warriors talking about wanting a new head coach in the Bay Area. Is there any legitimate discussion within the local media about Kyle Shanahan's job security?
I think it's extremely important for the Niners to finish the season strong. I mean, some of these guys are playing for contracts. A couple guys come to mind are like Charvarius Ward and Talanoa Hufanga, who've been dealing with injuries this year or off-the-field problems. But I just think that, you know, the fact that they drafted some guys that could possibly replace them, like a Malik Mustafa at the safety position or Ronaldo Green, who's been covering pretty well as a rookie. I just don't think that the Niners, they don't want to leave off, you know, any bad impressions going to the offseason. Plus, Fred Warner and John Lynch both talked about this earlier this week and last Friday. They both said this is a very prideful group. The last thing you want to do is go outside in front of their home crowd on Monday Night Football against the Detroit Lions or even the following week against a divisional opponent with the Arizona Cardinals. So I don't think this Niners team will just, you know, go out like that and just leave off a bad note on the season. Now, in regards to the Twitter warriors, will Kyle Shanahan be on the hot seat? I wouldn't put too much into that because, to be honest, if anybody wants to apply any context to the situation, this is not the year you could blame a head coach. We all know the problem with the Niners, what has been. It's been simply injuries. I mean, you know, a lot of guys in this NFL, they've been dealing with injuries, but the difference is the Niners' frontline guys have been hurt. You know, somebody like a Christian McCaffrey or Dre Greenlaw. You know, the list goes on. You know, they probably had, you know, 15 or more guys on the injury report this year. So I don't think this is the year you could blame Kyle Shanahan for the miscues.
Yeah, maybe it's some Seahawks fans trying to stir up some trouble with the Niners. I know none of us would be mad if Kyle never had to face Kyle Shanahan's offense again. Now, let's go to the Seahawks. They had to grind out a win last night over the Chicago Bears. They won just 6-3. Sorry to everyone nationally who had to watch that one. It's the lowest scoring game in the entire league this season. And, I mean, look, it's hard to ignore the issues on offense. They established the run early and then just couldn't get anything going as the game went on. Geno Smith, lucky to not have any turnovers, the near interception, the sack fumble that was recovered by the offense. DK Metcalf, he was lucky his meltdown didn't come back to bite the Hawks. But, man, the defense stepped up and then some. Just 179 yards given up. That's a season low. 7 sacks on top of that, plus the game-sealing interception for Reek Woolen, who's had a really up-and-down year. I mean, look, the offense made it harder than it needed to be, but a win's a win. And now Mike McDonald will finish his first year as head coach with a winning record and a chance to get to double-digit wins next week in L.A. So speaking of L.A., the game of the week for the division will be in Los Angeles tomorrow night as the Cardinals look to play spoiler against the Rams. We mentioned it. A Rams loss would set up a winner-takes-all matchup for the division with the Seahawks next week. Gerard, before I go to you and hear what I don't want to hear, I'm going to go to Robbie first. We mentioned that the Cardinals are already eliminated, but is there any extra motivation for Arizona to try and play spoiler? And what's your game prediction for tomorrow night?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think you're going to want to hear what I have to say here either. I am not very confident that the Cardinals are going to come out of Los Angeles with a win. On one hand, because just historically, the Cardinals going to Los Angeles, they've not fared well in that type of a setting. The Rams have really had the Cardinals' number recently. Gerard mentioned it earlier. The Cardinals laid the beat down. They kind of laid the hammer down on the Rams in Week 2. I kind of have a feeling the inverse is going to happen here. The Cardinals are saying the right things. They say, Kyler was saying on Christmas Day that they're prepared to be spoiler, and they're obviously going to be playing for pride, much like the 49ers. Some of these guys are playing for contracts. All that stuff is still true. The Rams are just a better football team right now. The Cardinals' defense has been kind of struggling since the bye week. And then on offense, Paris Johnson Jr., the left tackle's out. James Conner is still questionable with an injury. Depending on what guys can get back healthy or not, I still feel like the Rams are going to come out of this one on the winning side.
Unfortunate to hear. I don't like hearing that. All right. Gerard, more bad news, I guess, for me. I mean, we mentioned it. The Cardinals gave the Rams the business in Week 2. They beat you guys by 30. Puka Nacua did not play, though. It seems like this is a different Rams team. How much is that game a talking point heading into tomorrow, and who wins in Inglewood? I think I know the answer.
I don't think it's a talking point, but I agree with what Robbie said. I mean, this is a healthy Rams team compared to the Arizona team that's coming in Saturday night. That Rams team in that first game early in the year when the Rams were 1-4, during that first 5-game stretch, they were not healthy at all. The only Ram injury right now on the injury report is right tackle Rob Havenstein with a slight shoulder issue that happened in practice. He's listed as questionable. Otherwise, they're good to go. The Cardinals are not. The Rams have everything in front of them. They know if they win the game, they get a little help, they win the division. Week 18 won't even matter. Not to mention the fact that we've talked about it already in the show. Cardinals gave the Rams their worst beatdown of the year earlier in the season. Sean McVay is a master at making adjustments when playing a team a second time. This Rams team is hot. They have come of age. I've mentioned this before on the show. Second youngest team in the league. They are now believers in the Sean McVay way to win football games, sticking together. The line is 6.5 points. Bring in the Arizona team that just gave up 36 on the road to Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. Give me the Rams 34-17 Saturday night at SoFi.
All right, well, I'll go with my prediction next. I'm pretty sure I'm 0 on this show when it comes to picking games specifically with the Seahawks. So give me the Rams by 1 billion. Give it to me. In the modern era, the Rams are tied for the largest margin of victory in NFL history when they beat the Falcons 59-0 back in 1976. I say they break that record tomorrow night. It's going to be all Rams all night. Book it. I'm hoping my picking luck comes into play here. Do not take this as gambling advice, please. It's not going to go well for you. All right, Keyshawn, we've gotten all the biased parties out of the way. What's your view of this matchup from a neutral perspective?
I just think that the Rams, like Gerard kind of mentioned earlier, this is one of the hottest teams in the NFL since their 1-4 start. I can't see the Cardinals because their psyche is just completely destroyed after that heartbreaking loss in Carolina last week. And I just think that the Rams are playing with too much things on the line right now, obviously with the division up for grabs. I just don't think the Cardinals will have any chance against them. I do think that James Conner will be a problem to deal with because he's had 90 yards rushing or more the past 3 games. So it's funny, in that earlier matchup this year with the Rams and Cardinals, the main problem for the Rams was they couldn't stop Marvin Harrison Jr. And to be honest, he got Tre'Davious White sent out of L.A. because ever since then, it's never been the same for that cat. But, in all honesty, I think the Rams is a better team right now, and I can see them winning probably around somewhere along the lines of like 28-14.
All right, Saturday night, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll all be tuned in, all right? It's well, let's switch gears now. It's time for a game of fair or foul. I'm going to give you guys a statement. You tell me if you agree or disagree. First up, Saquon Barkley closing in on Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record. He just needs 268 yards total over his last 2 games against the Cowboys and Giants to get it done. So, Keyshawn, let's go back to you. Barkley will break Eric Dickerson's record. Is that fair or foul?
I'm going to say it's fair. I think the Eagles are going to really try to make this thing happen and come to reality. I mean, a guy like Nick Sirianni, he's always in the media for the wrong reasons, but he does support this guy. So I think he's trying to make this happen. Plus, look at the next matchups. The Dallas Cowboys are the 6th worst rushing defense in the league. I believe they give up around 134 yards a game on the ground. And plus, in fitting fashion, why wouldn't Barkley break the record against a former team he played it with, the New York Giants, that didn't want to pay him? So I think Barkley's going to make this happen, and he will break Eric Dickerson's record.
Could be, it just keeps getting worse for the Giants, potentially. Robbie, over to you now. Barkley breaks the record. Is that fair or foul?
Yeah, I love that it could potentially happen against the Giants. That would be kind of fun. I'm going to go foul only because we don't know in Week 18 if that number 1 seed is still going to be up for grabs or what the implications of that final game of the regular season will be for the Eagles. I think this next game with Kenny Pickett at quarterback, obviously they're going to probably lean heavily on Saquon Barkley, but if there really isn't anything to play for other than breaking this record, I wonder if that plays into the Eagles' mindset a little bit of, hey, our ultimate goal is a Super Bowl, and maybe we want to keep Saquon a little bit more fresh. But if he's close to breaking it, maybe they give him a couple extra carries. But for now, I'll say it's foul.
Yeah, Gerard, what do you think? Fair or foul on Saquon?
Oh, I'm definitely going fair on this. Obviously, this week, Jalen Hurts is out of the game, so it's going to be Pickett. As Robbie said, they're going to lean heavily on the run game. They've got the Cowboys and Giants, as Key said, in the last 2 games, and those 2 teams give up 135 yards and 142 yards per game on the ground, respectively. I mean, he could have a huge game in Week 17 and then only need 60 yards, possibly in Week 18. Now, we've also talked about this already. Should that Week 18 not matter to the Eagles? Will they be careful with Saquon? Of course they will. But also, as was stated, the people of Philadelphia, I used to work there, they are Eagle crazy, and they would love nothing more than to have the all-time single-season league rusher in their city and have it be Barkley. You better believe that will be in the talk going into Week 18, and if it's attainable without possibly overworking him in a game that doesn't matter, they'll still go for it. I absolutely believe he's going to get it.
Yeah, I'm going to say fair as well. You guys mentioned Jalen Hurts out with a concussion. Eagles are going to have to feed Saquon to move the ball on offense. They really don't have another option. Kenny Pickett, not really viable offensively, in my opinion. Look, you guys have already brought it up. 2 incredibly friendly matchups. The Cowboys and the Giants, I mean, it doesn't line up any better than this. Keyshawn mentioned bottom 6 in the league in stopping the run. They both allow more than 135 yards on the ground. I mean, you do that right there. Saquon gets the record. And you also add in the fact, we talked about he can break the record against the Giants. Everything this year that could go wrong for the Giants has gone wrong, except for when they beat the Seahawks. We don't even talk about that. I think it's only going to get worse. The team that let him walk is going to let him get the record. It's too perfect of an ending. I want to see it happen so bad, so I'm going to say fair. All right, next up, let's talk MVP race. Josh Allen currently the odds-on favorite to win the award at -250. Lamar Jackson closing the gap. He's been hot recently. He's now at just +160. Robbie, I'll start with you. Josh Allen holds off Lamar and wins MVP. Is that fair or foul?
I'll say fair. I think what Josh Allen has done this year is, I guess, maybe a little bit more impressive if you consider, not taking anything away from Lamar Jackson, but the Ravens added to their offense, bringing in Derrick Henry and some weapons. Deontay Johnson ended up ultimately not working out, but they added pieces to that Ravens offense, and Lamar Jackson continues to play at a high level. What the Buffalo Bills did is they shipped out Stephon Diggs, and they kind of reworked their entire wide receiving unit, and it took maybe a few weeks to get everybody on the same page, but that offense has been absolutely rolling, and the numbers that Josh Allen is putting up, he's putting up more stats with potentially less talent, if you will, less high-end talent with the Stephon Diggs leaving town. So I think right now it's probably fair to say that Josh Allen should be the favorite, but this is also one of those where I don't think there is a necessarily wrong answer.
Yeah, Gerard, what's your take?
I think he's going to get it. I mean, he's playing his best football. We've always talked about Josh Allen since he came into the league as being a difference maker, but his mistakes took away from his greatness and affected the Bills' ability to win big games. He's not making those mistakes this year. They're 12-2. Obviously, that record gets overshadowed by what the Chiefs have been able to accomplish. But there's no doubt that Josh Allen has elevated his game, and he's going to be rewarded, providing there's not a massive stumble in the last 2 weeks. And he's going to get the MVP. I believe it.
And Keyshawn, what about you? Josh Allen wins MVP. Is that fair or foul?
I'm going to say fair as well, because I think that you guys all brought up the similar points I was going to say about Josh Allen kind of doing more with less compared to Lamar Jackson and his team. But I think it simply comes down to the media and the people in general. They tend to get fatigued seeing the same guys win the award over and over. I'll give you a couple of examples. You know, a couple of years ago when Joel Embiid won or Nikola Jokic, it seemed like the NBA didn't want to see, Jokic being in those kind of talks of being one of the greats, winning 3 MVPs in a row. Or even going back in the day in the 90s in the NBA. We all knew that Michael Jordan was the best in the NBA at that time. And, when Charles Barkley won 93, you had to wonder, like, really, Charles Barkley? Or even Karl Malone years later. I mean, it's just something where people tend to get fatigued seeing the same guys win over and over. So I think if Lamar Jackson's not the runaway favorite, which he's not right now, I think they'll give the nod to Josh Allen.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm going to say foul, though. I think Lamar Jackson actually ends up catching Allen when it's all said and done. And I think it's going to come down to the final week of the year. The Ravens, they're going to need a win to clinch the division, while the Bills should be locked into that 2 seed. No reason to play Josh Allen in that game, so there's a good chance he sits or doesn't play. I mean, does that impact his MVP case in the voters? I personally think Allen should win the award. Robbie, like you said, not to take anything away from Lamar's season. I mean, he broke the quarterback rushing record set by Michael Vick. But, I mean, Josh Allen lost his 2 top targets in the offseason. And now he has the Bills as a serious Super Bowl contender. And, Robbie, you said the Ravens added Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs of all time. So, I mean, despite the Bills losing out and me thinking that maybe he deserves it, I think the final week of the year, Lamar's going to stat pad a little bit more. He gets to feast on an awful Cleveland Browns team that week. I think that's going to sway the vote over to Lamar, but I think it's going to be really close. All right, staying on the topic of awful teams, speaking of the Cleveland Browns, guys, there are a ton of them this year. More than usual. Right now, 9 teams with 4 wins or less. The last time there were more than 6, back in 2013, over a decade ago, when there were 7. And guys, looking at the matchups of those bottom barrel teams, it's not likely that many of them add too many wins. So what do you guys think of the state of the NFL? How worried should the NFL be about how far off so many of these teams are from seriously competing? Gerard, I'll go to you first.
The NFL has a problem with teams that are not winning because they have a problem with patience. We've seen it with the heat that is going on in Chicago with the young Caleb Williams at quarterback. We've seen Bryce Young get benched this year. He's back playing as a starter now. But the bottom line is you have to give GMs time to draft and develop their talent, especially at the quarterback position. But there is so much, what have you done for me lately? There's just simply not enough patience. You see these teams that are losing, you see them with revolving doors at the quarterback position, revolving doors at the head coaching position, and revolving doors at the general manager position. I know I sound like an LA homer, but you look at what the Rams have done since they brought in Sean McVay, Les Snead, Stability will eventually win games if your guys know what they're doing. And, the Rams have had 7 winning seasons now in Sean McVay's tenure here. And that's because there's stability. They're not afraid to take the time to do the things the right way. They gave Jared Goff a long leash. And only did they get to the point where the quarterback play was obviously holding them back did they pull the string and make the trade for Matthew Stafford. But that's the key. Teams have to be more patient, and so do fans.
I mean, it's a great point. I mean, you've seen this year, specifically quarterbacks reviving their careers. You look at Sam Darnold, Geno Smith a couple of years ago reviving their careers after being in spots where, not very feasible to winning. Keyshawn, I'll go to you now. What do you think about all this?
I think that Gerard made an excellent point saying, along the lines of this is a league that's kind of like we're living a market wave. Nobody wants to take the time, be patient, and develop their talent. But to be honest, it's not really because of talent on the field. It's simply the suits, the GMs, the owners, the presidents of the organizations. I mean, if you look at a team like the Las Vegas Raiders and New York Giants, do they really think that they come to a season where they can have a Gardner Minshew or Daniel Jones will be the guys to kind of get them to winning season? They knew what they were doing. I mean, because they're orchestrating the talent and roster a certain way to where, okay, we may not be good this year, but we're going to be so bad, we're going to have a top pick. And, it's happening right now for the Raiders and Giants. They're projected to be a top 5 pick currently, so they're going to get what they wanted. They want to get Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward in the upcoming draft. So it's not much what the players can do. It simply comes down to the suits being more patient.
Yeah, I completely agree, except for the fact that, alluding to the Giants, know what they're doing. I don't think they've ever known what they're doing. I don't know if they ever will. Let's go to you, Robbie. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, I think you guys all really kind of hit the nail on the head. There's a reason that the Steelers, the Packers, now the Rams, you could throw in that kind of category. There is a certain echelon of NFL teams that have stability in ownership and general managers and head coaches. And then there's a reason that those teams are always kind of at a different level of winning than these teams that we've been talking about that are always kind of near the bottom. And kind of to piggyback on what you guys said, too, I think part of it is coaching, too, because if you go down the list of teams that have struggled this year, the Giants, well, hard to say what Brian Daboll's future looks like. The Patriots, the Raiders, Antonio Pierce, is he that guy? I don't know. Arizona State fans can have their say about that. Jacksonville, the Chicago Bears situation is a mess. It all kind of goes back to, like you guys said, about patience and coaching. I mean, the players are only, I think, as good as the coach and the game plan and the schemes they are given. And you look at the teams that are at the bottom of the standings right now, and I don't know if, at the beginning of the year, everybody will say their goal is to win a Super Bowl. But if you looked at the beginning of the year, too, at some of the coaching and the coaching staffs of these teams at the bottom of the league, you could probably have picked them out and said, maybe they're going to struggle a little bit in that aspect. And if the coaching isn't there and then the players don't necessarily, they're not on board, then things snowball like it has.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's definitely a cause for concern. I mean, there's so many teams that, Gerard mentioned it, lack of patience at the quarterback position. The quarterbacks that are coming in from college football, they're less ready than quarterbacks were, years ago. I mean, they're just not ready to run it and gun it. The league has shifted to being more pass dominant. Defenses are starting to catch up. There's more of a emphasis on the run game. Look at the Packers, not relying on Jordan Love as much. They get Josh Jacobs and they're running the ball a lot more. So maybe it's a talent issue coming up from the college ranks, and you go down there and you look there, the transfer portal, all the mess that's going on right now. Do these bowl games mean anything? How is this talent being developed? It could be a talent issue in the NFL. I don't know. There's just so many teams with just no hope of competing next year. Winning 4 games got the Commanders' Jaden Daniels last season. This year, the Bears, Panthers, and Jets are all sitting outside the top 5 of the draft with 4 wins. One of those 3 will likely have the 9th pick in the draft. From what I've heard, it doesn't sound like this draft is going to be the one to save all these bottom feeders teams. So it's really going to be interesting to see if this conversation is still relevant at this time next year, and if the NFL decides to intervene and do something about it. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us, the NFC West Huddle. Remember, you can watch full episodes of the Huddle on the Fox local app. It's free on all platforms. Happy holidays, everyone, and we'll see you next week in the new year.